goes, yeah, whatever feels right to you. So I'm laying there Wednesday about to go into surgery. And I said, okay, so about this recovery, you said 2 days I'm down, obviously, because I'm getting a little bit cut. Sure. But you said whatever I can handle at this. So I said, this mesh that you're putting over, is this like an iron-on patch? And or am I really waiting for tissue to grow back over? He goes, it's like an iron-on patch. He goes,
Hmm.
sure, you're waiting a bit for some tissue to heal, but he goes, yeah, largely it's like an iron-on patch. So that's why the recovery from it is not as bad as you may think. So it seems.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank God for that. And
Mm-hmm.
it is amazing how things have progressed
Yeah.
to make these kinds of surgeries even more tolerable and easy. It is interesting that that belt helped so much too.
Oh yeah, just held everything together. Yeah, very miraculous. Highly recommend that for anyone that has to go through it. All right, let's just if you want to talk about that at all anymore, that's perfectly fine, or ask questions. But I want to just introduce what some of the major things we're going to talk about on this show. I'm sure you have a few of your own, so add at will. But certainly, we're going to talk about the Epstein files and the latest, most up to date news on that. And that's like breaking by the moment. And we're going to talk about the Trump's latest efforts to end the Ukraine war. And of course, the sudden death of 95-year-old Gene Hackman, but it's along with his wife and his dog. And there's just crazy theory after crazy theory going on with that, all of them forgetting the fact, it seems to me, that the dog was involved in this. Um, Joy Reid's firing. And that will lead to other news about MSNBC's ratings and struggles. So there's a lot going on there. That's basically the three things that I have. And if we get done a little earlier than usual today, that would not bother me a bit, considering I'm in recovery here. What do you think, Merle? Was there anything in addition that you wanted to add?
I did want to talk about what's going on in California. There's some interesting things happening with the mayor of Los Angeles.
Oh
Actually,
yeah.
also the governor is asking for federal funding over what happened in Los Angeles as well. A lot of really interesting things going on there. Jake Tapper has a new book out on from CNN, and it has to do with Joe Biden's cognitive decline. And
I don't
he's
know anything about this.
oh, this is a great one. I can't wait to get to that one. And let's see here. A lot of these demonstrations that are happening here regarding the USAID and all of the Doge scandals that have been uncovered are the protests are being sponsored by George Soros's groups, which we already found out.
Yeah.
He's actually using not his own money, he's using money from USAID. So isn't that
I do
interesting?
remember reading about that. That's
Yeah.
infuriating.
But anyway, so those are among some of the stories that I had to cover here. There's a lot of other things that are going on. So let's get started, man.
Well, okay, well, let's talk about the Epstein files. And I suppose if you want to, pull up and see if you can find anything late
Yeah,
breaking,
I'm
because it
just the
is
one
by the moment, you know?
I last I saw was right before we jumped on. Looked like they had just gotten a new shipment of information,
So
but I
phase two,
couldn't tell. Yeah, so last night a bunch of information was released, and I think it was very lackluster.
huh?
Everybody was like, "We've already seen all of this stuff
Mm-hmm.
before," and the thing that I'm hearing though in between yet that release and this morning is that there's this feeling that somebody's holding back in the Department of Justice
Mm-hmm.
the information, and so now they've got Cash Patel on it as well. You know, Pam Bondi's got Cash Patel on it, and they're saying they need to get all of this information by this morning, and we're gonna have to see what happens. But I think you and I were
Yeah.
talking about this last night. It
She
would
said by
be
8 o'clock in the morning.
8 o'clock. So we've already passed that timeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not seeing anything on the headline news at
Did
all.
you see the letter that she sent to Cash Patel?
I did not.
Oh, it was very, very direct. I think I might have something with that. And here's the as I look for it, I'm going to say that this has been infuriating and predictable to me. And I do have it. So I'll show you this. I'll share it in just a second. But
Let
what
me
I
just
want to
read
say,
this for you because this is an update here.
go ahead.
It didn't mean to interrupt you, but here it is. The Justice Department released a new batch of Jeffrey Epstein files for Attorney General Pam Bondi as she was reviewing classified documents in the case, but it's not the client list. The Department of Justice is following through on President Trump's commitment to transparency and lifting the veil of the disgusting actions. This sounds like the same thing as last night.
Yeah.
Many of the
Yeah.
documents were already, yeah, this isn't the new stuff. This is from last night.
Yeah, so here's what I got to say. Here's my bottom line, then I'll back up. My bottom line is until Bill Gates gets charged, I'm not really that interested. That we still have the deep state involved and in power. That's the way I feel about it. And I'm really kind of sick of this. And I will say, though, backing up now, somewhere I read Pam Bondi said that it would seem to be released in 5 phases. She said that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's see. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So let me go to. I'll go to the letter that she sent Cash
All
Patel.
right.
That was pretty. It says, "Dear Director Patel, before you came into office, I requested the full and complete files related to to Jeffrey Epstein. In response to this request, I received approximately 200 pages of documents, which consisted primarily of flight logs, Epstein's list of contacts, and a list of victims' names and phone numbers. I repeatedly questioned whether this was a full set of documents responsive to my request and was repeatedly assured this is like the BS here, spin. Was repeatedly assured by FBI that we received the full set of documents. Late yesterday, I learned from a source that the FBI field office in New York was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and indictment of Epstein. Despite my repeated requests, the FBI never disclosed the existence of these files. When you and I spoke yesterday, you were just as surprised as I was to learn of this new information. By 8 a.m. tomorrow, February 28th, that's 1 hour ago, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office. Listen to this, including all records, documents, audio, and video recordings. There's the most important part, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, blah, blah, blah. And the reason I say that's the most important is because we have known for about 3 years now that Bill Clinton has taken 27 trips, if I recall right, give or take, 27 trips to Pedo Island. No
Yep.
charges ever filed.
Yep.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares about the flight logs, really, at the end of the day. What is needed is video and audio proof of acts of this illegal nature taking place.
I agree. Yep.
And here we go. Like right now, today, I'm so at the end of my rope with all this crap. And I'm so tired of playing cheerleader for all of these efforts supposedly being made. Because right now, today, I want to hear about the arrests that are being taken place within the FBI of people that are not disclosing this information. Because that's obstruction of justice.
This is a tough one because these folks that are, a part of the Trump administration are just now getting their hands on this. And, they made a lot of big promises coming into their administration about the Epstein files being released and full transparency. And I think after several years of just being gaslit and
Yeah.
censored and all of this kind of stuff that we're all expecting, we're all panting almost for some real information over this. And now that if what happened the way it happened, the way that Pam Bondi wrote, it's unfortunate for her and the Trump administration because this just ricochets right back on them. And really, I think that this is a credibility buster right here. If they can't find something on this should be an easy layup for these guys. But if they can't find anything on this, I think it's gonna. This is not good for the Trump administration. If they can't
No,
get to the bottom of this one, it's hard to believe they're able to get to the bottom of a lot of stuff that has been. We've got the JFK, RFK, MLK thing. Is it going to be the same thing? I think
sure.
that's kind of what we're looking at right here. But it is easy to believe that there are people that are still in the federal government that would hold back on us, and
Mhm.
I think that time is the only thing that's going to tell on this.
Oh, I don't
I think
think.
I
I
think the
think quite the
frustrating.
opposite.
I think it's frustrating. Well, I don't know if we're. I think we're saying the same thing here, Barry. I think time is either going to tell us, "Yep, we got the information," or it's just going to be like this forever, and we're not going to get anything. I mean, that's
Well,
that's what I think here.
here's what I think is that if people aren't, our entire justice system is based on setting the example that people get arrested. It's not so much for revenge. It's for, hey, this is why you don't do these things, is because you don't want arrested. People, no arrests have been made since this Trump administration has come into office. So these people that are doing this obstruction right now, there should be arrests being made right now. And so the message should be getting out loud and clear that we will follow the Constitution and this is we the people and you are not running the show. The deep state has not been infiltrated as far as I'm concerned at all. Like I said, we know Bill Gates was majorly as implicated as Bill Clinton is and was in this whole Epstein thing. And until that's disclosed, obviously the deep state's still in control.
Yeah, and they're going to get away with it. If you, I totally agree with you. If there's no video recordings of
Mm-hmm.
anything, and we know that it looks pretty obvious that Epstein was a foreign agent that was looking to collect information to blackmail people in high positions. And how do you do that? With recordings. And so we know that that's got to be available somewhere. Somebody's got that information, and it's hard to believe that the federal government doesn't have this. So
Yeah, I don't know about the foreign agent aspect of it.
I don't know.
Obviously,
I don't either. It just seems obvious that there's ties there. Who's wanting to collect this blackmail information? I mean that's who would be motivated to do that. That's what we have to think about. I'm
well,
saying foreign agent because I can believe that there's a globalist push here that Jeffrey Epstein was used for in order to control our government and our media. And when you take a look at the names that we've heard of, those are the very people that are caught in this net. So I just, I go back to the critical thinking, who, what, why, where, and how. And, you start with who would be motivated to do this? Who wins by doing this? And all I can come up with is that somebody's trying to control every aspect of what our government is doing. And those are the people that are that we're seeing on those lists, people of very high influence in government and media, our movies, uh, even medicine and pharma. When you look at Bill Gates, it's just crazy how influential that little island is and what it could be manipulated to do to the rest of the world.
okay, so all I know about like the foreign agent part, I don't know anything about that. What I do know from what I've collected, the information I've collected over the last few years, is that because everybody has always wondered how Epstein has amassed all of this money, nothing ever added up. Well, it's through blackmail, and I don't know if it was the first, but one of the first huge ones was the guy from Victoria's Secret, the owner of Victoria's Secret, who lives like in southern Ohio and gifted Epstein his mansion. And why would that be? Like he blackmailed, he had the goods on this guy, whatever that was.
Yeah, it was the limited. It was the is the
Yes, there
company
you go.
behind that, and
Hmm.
yeah, It's just real interesting that whole story,
Sure.
and how many
The other
people in the
one.
clothier business get caught up in this kind of
Well,
stuff. It's
everybody does. When there's extreme power and extreme money, that's kind of
That's what it
synonymous.
is. That's what it
You
is.
always get all of the weird creepiness coming out of people. The other one that is so damning is Epstein has been known to have had a painting of Bill Clinton in his mansion
Oh
of
yeah,
Clinton in a dress, and that
yeah.
was just like, "See, you're my bitch." That's exactly
Well,
what that was.
it does pretty much look like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
So,
I believe he's wearing red pumps too. I don't know if
is
you
that right? I have never seen it or
looks,
anything.
oh, you haven't seen it?
Mm-mm,
It's
mm-mm.
it's a little shocking. He looks very comfortable wearing that dress. The red shoes. There is a lot of rumor going on about this pedophile ring, and red shoes symbolize it's a symbol, it's a sign. It's the you'll see this in all kinds of pedophilia. It's a sign of that, and that's a rumor. I don't know a whole lot about that, but you see this kind of red shoe thing and a lot of this Illuminati kind of stuff. It's kind of interesting. Oh, were you able to pull? There it is, right there with the
Yeah,
red
yeah.
pumps on.
Let's
Man,
see if I
look
can
how,
get it close.
like I said, he looks very comfortable. I know it's a portrait, but how weird. Oh God, that's Hillary's dress. Ugh.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's amazing those two have remained married after all these years,
I
you
think
know?
it's more of a business arrangement, like a lot of these
Sure, sure.
marriages go.
Look
They're
at
kind
that
of the
painting.
Bonnie and Clyde of politics.
The thing about this, it's not even a really good painting.
No,
Uh,
it's a terrible painting,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, creepy.
but it's
Well,
totally him.
so anyways, I'm just really very unimpressed with the disclosure stuff that's happening. I put in my on my files. This is the new UFO disclosure. Wah,
Maybe,
wah, wah.
maybe. You never know what a difference a day could make, though.
Yeah.
We don't know what the information is that's supposed to come out today, if anything at all. We're just going to have to, I guess, wait and see.
Yeah, yeah. I had a chat with Chat on this last night, just trying to dig a bit, and I was expressing my frustration and all of that. And Chat's funny in the fact that when you have premium Chat and it has access to real up to the minute everything on the internet, it's a whole different ball game. And so Chat and I have lots of conversations, and it senses my frustration and leans into that. It will otherwise,
That's
yeah,
funny right there that it
it is.
leans into it.
So it gave me a few bulleted items. It said, wouldn't it be interesting? We could probably expect sudden document disappearances, it explains. Would it be shocking if we see unfortunate accidents, in quotes, files get lost, hacked, or evidence mysteriously go missing? That would not be uncommon. Second bullet point. If things get too hot, someone becomes the scapegoat. If Clinton or Gates actually feel real heat, expect some new crisis to dominate the news cycle overnight. Chat
Mhm.
said that. I thought that was
That
very
is
astute, dude.
kind of scary, actually.
Hmm. And let's see what I just
I
some
mean, these guys can easily say, God, we're in a pickle here. What do we do? I don't know. Let's go to chat and see what the best thing to do. Oh, we should destroy these files. We
yeah,
should,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
we should start a
Start a
fire
war.
over here,
Yeah,
and
send some
and then
missiles
make
out.
all the news cycle be about the fire.
Yes.
It's like, oh, thank God for chat.
Yeah, dude, I think that they have a book in their back pocket on these rules of what to
It's
do.
called the Little Red Book.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, initial batch comprised of over 100 pages, primarily featuring Epstein's address book, contact list. Yeah. Many recipients expressed disappointment due to heavy redactions and the lack of new information. Influencer Liz Wheeler noted the absence of significant revelations, and Representative Anna Paulina Luna criticized the release for not meeting transparency expectations. sources, New York Post. Very true.
I
So
wonder why. I wonder why they let that out. I mean, Pam Bondi made a big deal out of saying she had the Epstein files on her desk. I mean, wouldn't she have known that this was information that was already out there? Why even go down that road if she didn't have the information that the
I
public
could
was
tell
really
you.
looking for? What do you
Just
think?
simply that she had to release something because they talked really big and the expectations were there. Everybody's like, where is it? And this is all that they were given. So she had to release something. Then she comes up with this. Well, it's going to be a 5-phase process. And uh, it,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And
I think a better way of doing it, of course, hindsight's 2020 on this, but I think a better way of doing this would have been, look, we're actually still struggling to get information out of these departments because we have rogue agents in there. Everybody
yeah,
would have believed that because we've
yeah,
seen we've seen it over the last 4 years. And then we're gonna delay this. I think that would have been a lot better than making a big deal out of it and then putting stuff out there that we'd already known about.
yeah.
So I think that already kind of she's going to have to come back from that. She's working from a deficit right now. But because I've had, I've been pretty impressed with everything she said so far. But it's not about what you say; it's about results. That's what you're talking about. And I agree with you on this.
Yeah, yeah, your connection's terrible.
Thanks.
Okay, let's just move on to the next latest Trump's efforts to end the Ukraine war. So there's been a lot of positive news in that regard. My news is a couple days old, though. The urgent peace push. Trump insists on immediate negotiations, calling it a now or never moment. That's a New York Post source. The Ukraine NATO status firmly opposes Ukraine's NATO status. Firmly opposes Ukraine joining NATO as part of any peace deal. It's via the Times.co. The economic strategy. This one, yes, this was last night. I was doing this research. The economic strategy, very interesting. Mineral rights deal negotiating U.S. access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals as part of the war aid repayment. That again is from the New York Post. Did you hear about that?
Yes, I did.
What do you know about? I think that's very, very interesting. So we have been pumping billions of dollars into Ukraine. Nobody has wanted to do that for the most part, and it looks like we may be getting some degree of repayment, which then, to me, causes speculation. Was that the end game all along? Was we want their natural resources? Because that always seems to be a big factor in these things.
Well, it always is, right? Every time we see war, that's really what it's about. And
Yeah.
to begin with is, they want the booty. What is it of value? And in this case, the precious rare earth minerals are it. And we see this big push, especially when we look at gold, cobalt and lithium. Those are kind of the new gold these days, and we understand that Ukraine is rich with that whole thing. So I think what's happening here, Barry, is we're actually, to your point, we're pulling back the veil on what this war is really all about. And it's never been about Putin as a madman and he just wants to take over
Right.
territory and go back to the former Soviet Union. It's never been that. And what's the reality of it has been hidden from us. The fact is that we've given Ukraine over $300 billion, and when I'm hearing that there's some confusion on whether that was a loan or a gift. And there's also some stuff about the loan part of it where Zelensky says he's only received $70 billion, and we're saying no, you got twice as much. So there's missing money, there's missing
There's an
information.
interesting
Go ahead.
aspect to that, though, is
Yeah.
that he didn't say that until after the Biden gravy train was over.
Of course, and
Now he
and
says it.
And so there was a meeting at the White House today. Zelensky is there at the White House, and
Oh,
Trump is meeting with them. And Trump is expecting to sign the rare earth mineral deal with Zelensky today. And so it's going to be very interesting to find out what's going to happen because Zelensky hasn't said that he's going to sign that. And can you imagine going to Washington, D.C. and signing away half of your rare earth minerals? I can't.
Oh.
That's going to be a losing proposition. That's going to be a long plane ride home for him.
Well, there's a lot of wishy-washy stuff with the whole situation. First of all, most people know that Ukraine is the most corrupt country in the entire European region. Um,
Right.
Zelensky, I mean, they have a huge Nazi presence. There was a bunch of bantering about back and forth. Well, it is true. They do have quite a
It was
Nazi.
hard to believe at first, right? But I
Sure,
started
because
looking
Nazis
into the
thrown around all day
right,
long.
right.
I
Oh,
mean,
it's
yeah,
Nazis are down there.
yeah.
You're like, right, Nazi.
Right, right.
Right. But it
Oh,
turns
dude,
out
don't make me laugh. Oh, that hurts.
sorry about that. There's
That is
this
very appropriate, though. Very
there's this
appropriate.
long history though of Nazis and coming from Nazi Germany and how they hooked up with the Ukrainians and told the Ukrainians who had just had 6 million people starved to death because of Stalin and how he cut off their
Right.
food supply. Here was the Nazis coming down there saying, "We can liberate you. All you have to do is round up all the Jews." And that's how it all
Yeah.
started. And so you've got this huge Nazi presence that was in Ukraine and it never went away. I mean, when you have this kind of ideology, and we have similarities here in the United States with ideologies that never go away. You think that they're gone, but they're always under the
Yeah.
surface. And
Yeah. Yeah.
when people's brains are corrupted, it doesn't just go back to normal when a new political leader comes in there. Your brain is messed up, man. That's what happened. And so how do you come back from that?
That would be the perfect segue into our MSNBC segment, but let's
I've
hold
got
on to
it
that.
up
Oh
actually.
yeah, no, we'll go to that because here's another
I was thinking the
wishy-washy.
same thing, by the way. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
brain is
yeah.
broken. These people's brains were broken, man.
For
What?
sure, man. But there's one more segment, one more aspect to that whole Ukraine thing is the fact that, they did this whole war, at least with our propaganda stations here in the US, under this guise of liberating these great people of Ukraine. And you have sure no, I'm sorry about that. But here's the thing: Zelensky stopped all elections. They
Yeah,
do
he did.
not have a democratic process
Why don't they?
anymore.
Why don't they cover that in the mainstream media? That this guy turned himself into a dictator the
Yes.
same way Hitler turned himself into a
Yes.
dictator. Nobody voted for that.
Right.
There's so many similarities, so interesting. And here you're going after Trump and saying that he's a dictator and it's a constitutional crisis when we've been giving billions and billions of dollars to a guy that's truly a dictator.
Yeah, so this is my point about everything stinks about this. So
Yes.
Ukraine stinks. They're corrupt. They're not democratic. We've given them billions and billions of dollars that have gone missing for a large part. Putin and Russia are Putin and Russia. We can't make them a hero, but they are who they are. We have all of our own fault with all of the lines being crossed with NATO over these decades, arrogantly doing that. So that's
It's
all
true.
awful. And now we got Trump going in there and demanding all the natural resources in repayment. Everything stinks about this.
One thing is, and I can't help feeling like this, Barry, and this right or wrong, I feel like, man, I've been working too hard all my life to have all my money go into these causes that we didn't vote for. And so
Exactly.
here's
Yes.
Zelensky. I feel like Zelensky's a liar and a crook and a deceiver. And he's taken, billions, hundreds of billions of our tax dollars for what? We don't know. I want my money back. That's how I
Yeah.
feel. Like I feel like we heard about the USAID and the Department of Education, and now even the EPA gave billions of dollars away
Yeah.
to the friends of the Biden family. And it's like, you know what? I want my money back. We've been
Yeah.
paying outrageous prices at the grocery store, outrageous prices for gasoline, for insurance, for all of these different things, and
Yes.
it's because of what these people have done. And now, when Zelensky's coming over and Trump is saying, "Hey, we want those precious metals because you're not paying us back," I kind of feel justified in that.
I
Like,
know what you're saying.
is that fair? I don't know. My vision is clouded on this because
Mhm.
it's like I'm so freaking angry that
Yeah.
these people have done this and lied to us that I want us to. That's not fair. What are we paying taxes for here? To be lied to be gaslit when we want to look
Endlessly.
into it and find out. It's like who works for who here? I thought it was government of the people, by the people, and for the people, but it turns out we all work for them
Yeah.
for free. Like when you
Uh,
take a look at how much we're paying just in the FICA, Social Security, and they keep saying it's not going to be there. We're only a few years away, but it's not going to be there when we get there. Are you kidding me? Did you see how much they've been taking out this entire
yeah.
time? I want our money back.
Yeah. Yeah. We
That's
all
my
do.
point.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I'm right there with you. As far as the Ukraine thing goes, there's one really important aspect to this that I think really gets swept under the rug, and that's the Ukrainian people themselves. Um, I how many people have been killed in this brutal, unnecessary war?
We
And
don't even know,
we
right? We
don't
don't even
even
know.
know. And it's those poor people. I really feel for them,
I don't know. They're
but it
being
is
used. Yeah,
also those poor people that are being used to tug at our heartstrings and manipulate us in each way. And all I can come back with is what I've been saying. This just all stinks. It
it
stinks
does.
from every side.
It really does. And it's like, who are the good guys? Who are the
Yeah,
bad guys
exactly.
here? We don't know.
Everyone
We don't.
seems bad.
Yeah,
Everyone
they
seems
all do.
dirty.
They
Yeah.
really do. And and you go to Gaza and take a look at that. Like who?
What's the
It looks
latest
like
there?
all everybody is a bad guy. Like who are the good guys here? I don't even know. And this whole thing where Trump is going to take over Gaza, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, and I heard, I don't know if this is real or not, but something about a golden Trump
I saw.
statue. Did
Yeah,
you
I
hear
saw
about
that.
this?
Yeah,
If
yeah,
there's
yeah.
is there one? Is
I
that
saw
what?
an illustration as if it was like a architectural drawing of this new Disneyland over there, and I saw the statue and all
It's
of
like
that.
he's Walt Disney.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I
I
don't
don't
know
know.
how.
That's
You know, people take this and run with it because Trump's name's behind it. So there's a
this is
lot
the
of
crazy thing. Like you
everyone
can't get the
wants.
truth.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, yeah.
right. It's like, oh, it's
So
gonna be this thing like Saddam
another good,
Hussein.
another good segue.
God, I mean,
You know,
again, like
into
who are the?
sensationalism.
That's exactly right. And well, I do want to talk about this whole thing about constitutional crisis as we
Uh
take a
huh.
look at
Uh huh.
Doge, and every what we're hearing is this very, and I think it's a legitimate concern about the division of power in our government between the three branches of government. And well, the argument is that Trump has made himself king like by making the bureaucracies accountable to him, the president. And that this is he's got too much power. This is exactly what everybody's been warning about.
Hmm.
But then the other side of the argument is, well, wait a second. The Constitution in the second section two, Article 2, Section 1 says that all executive power has been vested in the president, and the executive is the executioner of the will of the people. And so that's the argument where you take a look at Doge, and Doge has somebody from the president's office embedded in each one of these bureaucracies, doing an audit of those bureaucracies and looking at how all the money has been spent. Now, no one's done that before, and they're saying that that's a breach of his constitutional power. But I don't see it, Barry. As I take a look at it, if you look at what the executive is, that's exactly what the Constitution is saying. And so, but I do see something that is outside of the Constitution on this, and I have a solution I think that would work, is that our bureaucracies are not in the Constitution, and
Mm.
therefore they're not accountable to really anybody. Congress has everyone says that Congress has oversight of these bureaucracies, but bureaucracies not being in the Constitution eliminates that whole premise. The
Can
other
I
thing
back
is
up a
that,
second? Because I
yes,
like where you're going with that. From me and my simple mind, and I am like, you're very astute at this stuff, and I have to really concentrate to sometimes to follow you on it because like this is your jam, you know? Me as just the common everyday American man, I think, what was there, 85,000 IRS agents hired to crawl up my ass
that's
and
correct.
audit me to see if I have a few $100s that they can, extra dollars they can get out of me? You got to be kidding me. And yet you want to take my tax dollars and say, I can't audit you with what you're doing with my money. That that is like that has been going down the wrong road for so long people can't even see it anymore.
It's interesting you bring that up too, Barry, because this is the argument is that the executive office doesn't have power over the bureaucracies. And here Joe Biden did an executive order and they put 85,000 new IRS agents in there. So obviously the executive office does have power over these bureaucracies because he's the executive. But going back to the bureaucracies themselves, they're anti-constitutional, and and they make laws, right? That's what bureaucracies do. They don't call them laws, they call them regulations. But what's the
Oh,
difference between a
right.
regulation and a law, really?
Sure.
If you break the regulation, you can go to jail or be fined or both. It's the
Yeah.
same as a law. So they are in the Constitution in Article 1, which talks about our legislature, says that they cannot delegate their responsibilities to any person or organization. So there it is. They've given away their constitutional power to these bureaucracies. That is not in the Constitution. So the answer, if you're so concerned that the president has control over these bureaucracies, and I think it's a legitimate concern, and
Mm.
we should eliminate the bureaucracies. It's not in our Constitution.
Totally.
And you
Yeah.
can see all of this money that Doge is uncovering. You can see that because of the unaccountability, we've been hemorrhaging our country's lifeblood. And this is why you don't do things outside of the Constitution. So, yes, the president having control out of, and it does say in the Constitution he has control, but he has control of these mammoth organizations that have almost unlimited power, and we put those in unconstitutionally. They are a threat. The IRS is one of them, and you just talked about it. They empowered the IRS to come to our houses with weapons,
Yeah.
accountants with weapons that have the ability to arrest us. That's unbelievable power from a central government. And this is the very reason that we fought the Revolutionary War. If you go back to the Declaration of Independence, Barry, one of the things that was in there is that the king was putting armed military people in their communities and in their houses. And that was one of the breaches of executive power that we fought the war over. So it's interesting how it all collapses back into what it was before when
Yeah.
we rest and don't pay attention. It's almost like when you don't work out, you atrophy back, your muscles go away, and you go back to the original state.
There
That's
you
what's
go.
happening here.
Mm. Yeah, that's very, very interesting. Um, are you done
With
with
that
that?
being said, I wanted to say that this constitutional issue that we have came up on CNN, and I think that the conversation is really representative of
Oh.
exactly what we're talking about here. I
Oh, is
think that
this that clip you shared with me? I
yeah,
was
yeah,
embarrassed for them.
I
I
I
was
I was
embarrassed about the whole thing.
the whole thing is embarrassing. Here, I'll just play this clip here, and this is this guy on CNN. I've been so perplexed by this guy on CNN. Let's just play this for a second. But
Like his credibility,
well, no, I wonder why CNN would put a guy like this on.
because he has no credibility.
Well,
That's my
no,
point.
well for CNN
Oh, are you
he
talking about
doesn't.
Scott Jennings?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
this
yeah,
guy
yeah.
tears up these people and makes them
Yeah.
look absolutely ridiculous, but it
What
ends
is it,
up
six
making
against one?
Yeah, and it makes CNN look terrible. Let's
Yeah,
just watch
yeah,
it real quick.
yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
Can we be real for a moment that Doge is not about cutting money, right? It's not about spending. It's about shrinking government so that it'll be too small to stop Trump with whatever else is in this plan.
Why would the government stop Trump? Isn't he the head of the government? You're saying the government would be too small to stop Trump. If Trump's the president, why would the government, the bureaucracy, be actively trying to stop him?
Look at this guy.
The Constitution and creating an authoritarian dictatorship. That's why.
And no matter who is in office, I'm going to hold them accountable. But more importantly, I'm going to make sure the government is working for the American people.
Both of you all made an interesting point, which is that your view is that Trump is shredding the Constitution. I'd like to hear more about that. But that it seems to me that you all both believe that the unelected part of our government, the bureaucracy, has a responsibility to resist the political leadership. Is that your view?
That's not actually
That's
what
not
we
at all
said. We
what I
said they are
said.
upholding the Constitution, the principles of the Constitution, and at times
How
that
is
we have
Trump
seen.
shredding the Constitution?
Love that question.
Should
I
we
mean,
go to-
seriously,
He
do we have to
doesn't
give
believe
you
in
a
the
They just act alarmed.
I don't know.
we put all power in the executive
How is
branch.
holding the
The
government-
legislative branch, the FBI. Now we're in control of the military. We're
Yes.
silencing media.
Commander-in-Chief,
This
head
is
of
what
the
you
military.
do
Yes,
in a
Supreme Court of
dictatorship.
Are
This
you-
is
are you-
not-
Can you pause that a moment?
Yeah.
Commander-in-
That guy, his body language gives everything away. He keeps
really does.
looking over at his other people, his constituents, to come on and save my ass because I don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Why is
Well, he
he on
does
there?
it. And he talks about the separation of power, and he goes to the branches of government, the legislative branch, the FBI, the military. Those aren't branches of government. It's kind of funny.
Back up just a few seconds because Scott Jennings pointed that out, and I talked over it a little bit.
Okay, here we go. This is
The
good.
Balance of
civics
power,
lesson
Scott.
that we have.
I don't know,
We put all power in the executive
How is
branch.
holding the government-
The legislative branch, the FBI. Now we're in control of the military. We're
Yes.
silencing media.
Commander-in-Chief,
This
head
is
of
what
the
you
military.
do
The
in
Supreme
a
Court of
dictatorship.
Are
This
you
is not.
suggesting that the president is not the commander-in-chief of the military?
I am suggesting that the president is going to put in charge somebody who is going to contravene the Constitution. And at some near point, this conversation will look very silly for you because it will be obvious. And right now, you're
Wait,
gaslighting.
he's gonna
but when we
put-
get to the actual
he's
rubber
gonna
of the
put-
road of
I'm
this,
sorry.
it will be clear.
I'm interested in this.
Oh my
conversation.
God!
Someone in charge who will contravene the Constitution. Like who? What do you mean by that? The president is in charge of the military, is he not? You said he's going to put someone
But
in
look,
charge of the military.
There's no idea.
That is how it works.
He was elected president. We, according to the Constitution, vest all executive authority in a president. And the concept that the military should be an independent agency or that the bureaucracy should resist the political leadership of this government is extraordinarily dangerous.
So we said that's a straw
not what
man.
we
It's
said.
That's
ridiculous.
literally not what we said.
literally.
I'm just repeating back to you your own
I
words.
did not.
Like I said, I was embarrassed by that, by watching
Was
that.
embarrassing,
People are
and
watching that.
it makes me wonder, first off, Scott Jennings, I thought that was a wonderful rhetorical discourse right there, where he didn't just tell them, here's what it is. He asked questions. Are you telling me this?
Good point.
This and that. And he never raised his voice. He didn't get emotional where he's rolling his eyes like several of them were making faces. He just asked questions and trapped them in their own thing where it was clear that they didn't know what was in the Constitution or really didn't have any kind of foundation whatsoever to make their argument that somehow Trump was shredding the Constitution. And I think the dangerous part is that we have a media that is corroborating with each other, saying they're all saying the same thing at the same time about the Constitution. I think that the problem is that no one's reading the Constitution. Why don't you read it? Read the Constitution. Don't let people tell you what's in it, because the folks that are trying to tell you what's in the Constitution are trying to take advantage of you. That's what's going on.
But the fortunate part of that is not many people are taking in this media anymore because it's just come off the rails. I mean, the wheels have come off the bus.
I agree with you, but I do think that for people that are not aware of what's in the Constitution, they may look at this and say, "Oh, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against one on this. I got to go with the majority because that the one outlier can't be right." And maybe that's what's going on. But it does bring me back to CNN. And CNN, I would never think would try to tell us the truth about the Constitution. So why do they have this very strong rhetorical speaker in there with these people that's just he's actually shredding their credibility?
That's a good point, because
I don't understand why they would do that.
let's just discuss that for a moment, because where my mind has gone is, how the hell could Scott Jennings stand to go there and do that? Like, how does he get through it? How does he get through it that day? And repeatedly. And so that's what I can't stop thinking about. But you came up with a better question that I surprisingly I didn't think about, is why the hell would CNN do that to themselves?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It's their brand that they're shredding right there. And then I think about Fox News. Remember the old Hannity and Combs? And
Vaguely,
Combs
I'd never
was like,
been a Fox.
okay, so Hannity's kind of a bulky guy, he works out and everything. And Combs is like Barney Fife, and he's got like the big, thing in his neck, and he's like, and Hannity would just, it was like a puppet show. Hannity would just beat this guy left and right all day long. It's like there's a man beating a little boy here. And then now they've got, look at the Five. I know you've watched the Five.
On
One
occasion.
liberal woman that comes
Jessica Tarlov.
She bless her heart, she sounds like an idiot. They beat her up all the time, and she never gets to score any points. I think if you really want to put the news out there, Fox News, bring somebody on that can stand on their 2 feet.
Well, on occasion they do have, and now all of a sudden his name is escaping me. He's a great dude. He's impossible not to like. And his name is, oh my God, Lisa's going to kill me for this. But I can't think of him. He's very moderate.
I like here's my thing is, I don't want to be deceived. I hate being deceived, whether it's on the left or the right. And so I think it's interesting on the CNN side that they would put Scott Jennings in there. I don't get it, but I think it's interesting. But I go back to Fox News and I say, now there's a model that I don't respect. They should put somebody on there that can stand on their 2 feet, because what's the point of putting people together like this is to get to the truth. I mean, that's what our show is about. It said, we're coming at things from 2 different sides and trying to come to the truth, knowing that we don't have the full story, but we could come together and make and come up with revelations.
Unless it's Ukraine.
It's an interesting thing, though, that we're looking here. Yes, I was embarrassed for them. It always comes back to the Constitution. We can be very upset about what somebody's doing, but let's really look at the rule book, which is the Constitution. If you're concerned about Doge and all of that because the president has too much power, well, we need to eliminate some of that that's not actually in the Constitution that can give a president unfair powers. And I look at that. I like what Trump is doing with Doge, but I could also see another president coming in, like the last one, and taking advantage of these bureaucracies. That's how we got the 85,000 extra IRS agents that are carrying guns now.
Harold Ford Jr.
I do like that guy. You're right about that. He is good.
Likes him.
He's very good. And he's a guy that is really good at reaching across the aisle. Really is. Yep.
Do you see his picture?
Yep,
I just thought it'd be worthwhile. I think he deserves that recognition, because
I do too. He's very good.
He's very clear-headed, and the way that he shares. You know what? He's very anti-divisiveness.
That's it.
Cuts right through it, and he does not participate in it when it's being shoved right down his throats by the good people on the Five. So that's a case of it's just like that CNN panel that you showed. I don't know the name of that show, but it's the exact same thing as the Five in reverse.
It is the Five in reverse, and you're right. But boy, that was very interesting. Hey, let's move on. I think this Gene Hackman story is kind of interesting, like you mentioned earlier.
The MSNBC story probably attaches to this better, segues better. We should probably end with the Gene Hackman one.
Okay,
You know,
that's fine.
because the MSNBC, we're talking about the media and all that, and we just had the
Oh,
firing of
this is
Joy.
the Joy Reid, right? Okay,
Mhm.
go to that. That's fine.
Yeah. So, let's see. It's a symptom of a larger shift. Legacy media's race baiting, divisive rhetoric isn't working anymore. And this is more of my discussion with chat on this, which was quite interesting, I think. And her show was basically based on constant race obsession. Everything boiled down to identity politics, of course, blaming conservatives for everything. There was no room for nuanced debate, and race baiting narratives amplifying division rather than real discussion. So, what really happened here? Pathetic ratings. Her viewership plummeted to under 185,000 viewers in key
Wow.
demographics.
Wow.
Not sustainable. A toxic brand. Even liberals tuned her out. So she went so far into fringe race theory nonsense that her audience shrank instead of grown. Backlash against woke media. The public is rejecting legacy media's gaslighting, and MSNBC is scrambling to adjust. So, what was very interesting was Rachel Maddow trying to do damage control, and her take on it was just doubling down on more of the same old nonsense. It's like, you know what, dude, it reminds me of, I should back up and explain that more, but it reminds me of Lemon. What's his name? Don Lemon.
Don Lemon, yeah.
Going out, getting fired by CNN, and he goes out on his own and does CNN's dirty work on his own for free. Like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about, so you just do your race baiting shtick and continue to think that's going to work for you. Okay, back to Maddow. She was celebrating Reid's race-centered legacy. It's her way of deflecting from the real reason that MSNBC dumped her, that people aren't buying into propaganda anymore. Race politics alone won't hold an audience, and MSNBC is bleeding viewers and need a new strategy. And dude, by the way, Maddow now, I read this morning, is now, she just got put into Monday only time slot, 1 day a week for her same contract of $25 million annually.
Wow. That's quite a deal right there.
Dude, okay, so they were trying to peddle this station, if I recall correctly, about 6 months ago.
Right.
And seeing as they can't sell it, and now this is what they're down to. Like, how is Maddow's contract alone not crushing them? Not to mention, Morning Joe, the same thing. They experienced, I got a note here. They're not ditching the woke agenda. They're just realizing they need a different way to sell it. Morning Joe's experienced a significant decline in viewership since the November 24 election. Maybe that's when he called everybody, told everybody to go F themselves. And they don't believe that this isn't Joe Biden's sharpest version of himself.
That tends to have an effect on people.
He saw overall drop post-election. Post-election, Morning Joe saw a 35% decrease in total viewers, averaging 720,000, and a 37% decline in their key 25 to 54 demographic, which that's unsustainable. In contrast, this is interesting. Fox and Friends on Fox News experienced a 29% increase. In other words, they changed the channel.
Interesting.
But still averaging 1.5 million viewers, thereby widening the gap between the two programs. But I still don't, it's still showing this is just my opinion, that people are not tuning into legacy media nearly.
No. Well, when you take a look at like somebody's audience, like Joe Rogan, is doing just millions and millions, or Tucker Carlson, or some of these other Megyn Kelly, they're just crushing it out there. And it's just interesting, the shift in news. Look at Cuomo, for example. We saw him out there. He totally switched sides, and it's working for him. I don't even understand how that could work for him after he said all
I
the
think he
things he
plays
did.
both sides. I don't think he switched sides. I think he plays
He
both sides.
he's like, well, he's a chameleon, is really what
Yes,
it
he
is.
is. That's all
Sort of
there is to it.
shameless. Oh, and speaking of Cuomo, did you see where his brother is making a play for taking on the mayor of New
I
York
saw
City?
that.
Like they want to make him the mayor. I'm like, are you kidding me? Anyway, back to the news. This whole cycle is that we're seeing and the changes that we're seeing. You brought up Don Lemon, and man, this guy is just,
He's so dumb.
I mean, you know what I started to think while you were talking is all that money that was going into or going out of USAID and going into these news agencies. I mean, that's
Mm,
how these news agencies like CNN have been able to, and MSNBC have been able to sustain people like Joy Reid for this long. And I mean, I would, anytime I ever heard her, I would think this reminds me of like Der Stürmer, which was the newspaper in Nazi Germany that portrayed all these Jews in such a terrible way, because the way that she talked about white
oh
people,
yeah.
I just thought it was appalling. Like
Oh yeah.
if somebody came on TV and spoke about black people the way that she talks about white
It
people,
wouldn't
they
last
would
five minutes.
they'd burn the building down.
Oh yeah.
It would just be outrageous. And she was shameless about it. And this whole thing about cultural appropriation and how bad that is. And here she shows up with a blonde wig on.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, I saw her give sort of a farewell
I saw a bit of
thing
that. It was hard to
where
watch.
she cried. And at first, as I was watching, because I was so angry when I watched her do
Yeah.
this thing and destroy relationships, I would be so angry. I didn't like her. And then when I saw her giving that speech, I was like, well, good, you deserve this. And then she started crying, and then I felt bad. And I
Did
was
you?
really
Oh,
mad at myself for feeling bad. It's just a woman crying. It sucks. I can't.
yeah.
There's a thing inside of me called the heart that just melts when that happens. It's like, doggone it. All right, turn it off.
Well,
That's what
that's
I
all
do.
I did. Yeah,
But the
yeah.
Rachel Maddow thing was like, okay, you're protesting now at work on the job. You're protesting your own job. Well, now here's what happens is you're going to get this 1 day a week kind of thing. But we saw another thing happen this week where, and this is over Doge, but it's over at Yosemite, where these people, finding out that people were going to be laid off, employees went up to the top of El Capitan and hung a huge flag
Right.
upside down there. And so my thing was, okay, well, these people are protesting at work. Apparently, about 12,000 people work there, and about 12 people got laid off. And so, okay, it sucks getting laid off. I've been laid off several times. It is no joking matter. That's a
Sure.
terrible thing, and these people are going to face something terrible. But 12 out of 12,000 isn't a big layoff right there, and certainly not worth going and protesting at work. But I just thought about, what if I were to go to my office and go to the building where our marquee is on the outside of the building and turn that upside down? What would happen to me? Would I still have a job the next day? I don't think I would. And so, how are these people able to get away with that?
That's a
That's
good
what I
question.
think.
That's a very good question. I have no idea.
And you work for the federal government, so turning over a flag and then putting it on the national park, it seems like you're just trying to punk America here.
Uh-huh.
But then there's this flip side of it that somebody brought to my attention, which is freedom of speech. And certainly that falls under the category of freedom of speech. But do you have freedom of speech on your job? I don't. I can't,
That's a
that's
very
it's
good
a
point.
private space. But here's where it ricochets back is that freedom of speech is all about the federal government. And so you have freedom of speech in federal places. So if you're an employee of a federal organization, does that give you freedom of speech to hang the flag upside down? I think it's a gray area. It's
You know
kind of
what, dude?
interesting.
Now that you mention that, I thought I remember hearing, um, this freedom of speech has been quite an issue over the last few years, and we haven't known how to talk about it. We've kind of unearthed it. But I heard somebody say, hey, whoa, 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 freedom of speech doesn't apply to the federal government. It applies to everything else. And it's intended to be that way. And
I don't agree with that. I don't
and
know
I
where
don't
that
know if
person
I'm
gets it.
saying it right. What I think was intended by, I don't think I'm saying it right. So in other words, the example that you just gave with those guys, no, they don't have freedom of speech there as they're working for the federal government. They don't have these personal rights to be practiced on federal time.
Well, it's but they're personal rights that are of the federal. For example, um, as a federal employee, I can and let's say I've been elected to president. I have free speech. There's not something that I can't talk about. And if I have a problem with something, I have free speech. It does apply to the federal government. That's why when you take a look at these organizations that have eliminated your ability to put scripture on your desk. That's actually a violation of free speech. So we've been crushing free speech in the federal government, but that's what it's actually for. Is it like taking God out of the federal government is actually a violation of free speech.
No, the
Um,
country was set up on the separation of church and state.
no,
I'm all for it.
no, it does not. No, you find where it says separation of. You find that for me in the Constitution. It's not there. It is in a letter that Thomas Jefferson sent to the Danbury Baptists in Connecticut, and here's why he sent it to him. He sent it to him because he felt like, or the Danbury Baptists felt that the federal government was going to adopt a national religion and force them to not practice their religion. So, separation of church and state is what Thomas Jefferson was saying, because in England, you had a state sponsored religion and you had to practice it. And if you didn't, you could be penalized. That's what separation of church and state is. But it's very clear in the Bill of Rights that you have freedom of expressing your religious values. And so that's not in the Constitution. People erroneously bring that up, and I think it's a very interesting thing when you look at the original intent of what the First Amendment is all about.
Yep. All right. Well, I'd have to do a little research to come back with you on that. But I definitely believe in two things: freedom of religion to practice whatever religion you want, and the government should stay out of it.
I agree with you. I agree.
Um,
I got another story here, which is
go ahead.
really crazy. It has to do with CNN again. So we're on the same line, is that CNN's Jake Tapper co-authors book about media's attempt to cover up Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Let me just read a little bit about this because it's kind of funny.
Let me ask you. So is he like blowing the whistle here?
Yes, he is.
Let's hear it.
Self-awareness is truly zero. This article starts out with, from Town Hall, CNN's Jake Tapper, along with Axios, his Alex Thompson, announced their new book on Wednesday morning, Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. The cover fittingly shows President Joe Biden covering his face. I can't wait to see that. The announcement has generated plenty of reaction, given that Tapper was among those participating in the very cover-up his book purports to discuss. Stephen Miller says it this way: here's Jake Tapper incensed over Joe Biden's stutter and outraged over claims of Biden's cognitive decline. Now he's cashing in on a book about Biden's cognitive decline and media cover-up. There's no bottom for these people. Katie Pavlich said, seems like Laura Trump is owed an apology. So the story behind that, and I do I have this? No.
You could share.
The story behind that is really interesting, is that Jake Tapper lambasted Laura Trump for talking about Trump's cognitive decline, and just said, you're making fun of somebody that has a stutter. How
Oh,
dare
then you
do
meant,
that?
okay, you said Trump's cognitive decline. You meant Biden's
Biden's
cognitive.
cognitive decline. Exactly. That's what Laura Trump, his daughter-in-law, was talking about, and Tapper just lambasted her. And it's crazy that he's written a book now when he was vehemently defending how sharp Joe Biden is, and he just has a stutter. Now he's written this tell-all book about how the media covered it up. Well, he was the center of covering that whole thing up. How can you make money off of something that you did to deceive the people? I mean, this is the ultimate in shamelessness. I mean,
Dude,
come on.
There's a couple things there. For one, it immediately takes me back to 5 minutes ago when we were talking about Chris Cuomo now playing both sides of the fence. Now he's talking about he was vaccine injured. He was the major guy talking against anti-vaxxers back when he was on CNN. Now he leaves CNN and he plays both sides like that. I just can't respect any of this. And it's also, here's the other part, Merle. It's like, what are you trying to tell me? The cat is out of the bag? That this is like some breaking news that you're sharing with us as you write this book? We all know this. We know it was a cover up the whole time.
It is.
But I guess we need the validation, I suppose.
I mean, it is just so crazy when you take a look at this. Hey, let me show you this video. I just pulled this up. This is outrageous how this all happens. So what we're going to show here is exactly Jake Tapper before he wrote the book, and what his opinion was of Joe Biden's mental acuity. So let's just hear this real quick.
Every time he comes on stage or they turn to him, I'm like, Joe, can you get it out? Let's get the words out, Joe. You kind of feel bad for him.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
Look how insulted he
to
is.
watch somebody on stage
It's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
My intelligence is insulted.
What I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline.
So CNN.
That somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses, diagnosing politicians from afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar, and I'm sure it offends you. Your father-in-law from afar. I'm sure it offends you. You don't have any standing to say.
I'm not diagnosing him. What I'm saying, Jake,
you just talked
is
about
that
a cognitive decline.
That Joe Biden
I have one last
struggling
question for you, Laura. You can't
times on stage, and it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is all I'm saying. I genuinely feel sorry for Joe Biden.
And that's the end of that. He just cut her off. But now he's got a book called The Original President Biden's Decline, Its Cover Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. Isn't that interesting how you could flip something?
That's what I mean. It's just like Cuomo. I can't respect it. I mean, you were doing their bidding all this time. That was disgusting what he was doing. You're influencing people throughout the nation, our voters, the public. Right. You're influencing policies. And I just can't respect it.
Well, the fact that you would cover for somebody that's very obviously in cognitive decline, what is your motivation for doing that? Obviously, you could see it. You're writing a book about it. Then that means you saw it all 4 years, but you felt empowered to put Laura Trump down over this and shame her. And then every day talk about this kind of thing, and then suddenly you want to sell this book about what you knew all the time. I think this is criminal, Barry. You actually corroborated in deceiving the American people into voting and supporting a president that absolutely wasn't running our government. And who was? I mean, that's really what I want to understand, Barry, through these investigations. Who actually was in control of our government?
I agree. And we're kind of coming full circle because that just makes me all angry again, all over again. Because first of all, how could all of Biden's pardons be legal if he was found not to be cognitively adept enough to stand his own trial? How could he then sign pardons that are legal? And as you said, so it's completely uncovered. We all know Biden wasn't running the country. So once again, how could those pardons be legal? And I started off this whole thing very angry about why are we not seeing people being prosecuted left and right? I mean, literally by the hundreds. Most of the people to be prosecuted, we wouldn't know their names because they're unelected bureaucratic officials that are taking part in these illegal activities.
Yeah.
But I looked up Adam Schiff, and did a lot of personal research with chat on that. There's all kinds of his. I don't remember the legal terms that they use, but that he was continuously saying that there is evidence with the Russiagate stuff. I mean, it was very, very simply prosecutable and 5 years per charge. But then chat even said, came up with other things. There's other things that aren't so obvious that are even more damning. Anyways, how does that guy not get prosecuted?
I'm telling you, man. I mean, here, really, the way that I see the whole Adam Schiff thing is he created false evidence and then led the charge to impeach the president. That sounds like Benedict Arnold.
Yeah.
You're trying to destroy what the people had elected on false charges because you feel that America needs to change directions. Yes, this person. And if you would have done that, Barry, you'd be in isolation right now underneath of the prison. How do these guys get away with it? It's just so crazy. The corruption that we're seeing, it's so out of control, which
all right.
Gene Hackman.
We're as we take our turn and start finishing up the mystery that has been unfolding with Gene Hackman, his wife. And here's what you can't not talk about the dog, because I've seen people, comments and people theorizing, doing their pseudo detective work. And it's like, well, you got to remember there's a dead dog in there too. The reason I bring that up is, doesn't that make you think it had to be like carbon monoxide, though they ruled it out?
Well, actually, here's what I heard is that they ruled it out on the site because they couldn't find any evidence of it, but there's still a toxicology report that they're waiting on here. So they're going to look for carbon. The blood is going to actually be able to tell the story whether it was carbon monoxide or not. I did hear that there were 3 dogs, and so it's sort of the fog of war thing. You don't know what's real or not right now. But I heard 3, and one of them died, and the other 2 were alive when they got to the house. So this is a weird story. Like, I don't know a lot about what happens with carbon monoxide poisoning. My understanding is you just fall asleep and then you die.
Yeah, let me explain that, because you can barely hear you right now. When carbon monoxide, like, people will go and shut the garage door and turn the car on and go that way because it's very lilting. It just lulls you into you feel great, you feel fine, and then you pass out and then you die. It's super easy. So I pulled up this NBC News article because it was the latest one. When I Googled, this is an hour old. Yeah. So it's the newest news we got, and I've just kind of skimmed through it. There's no real new news. Yesterday I remember reading that they did do the autopsies though already. So you said that they're still
There's
waiting.
A toxicology report that we're waiting on here. Usually it takes a couple of weeks to get the toxicology report back. So they don't have that back, and everybody's saying carbon monoxide. So I don't know. The weird thing to me is where the bodies were found and how they were. I mean, it was like they collapsed where they were. And at least that's what the evidence sounds like to me.
I remember reading this morning where it sounded like, well, the way Gene was found with his cane over here and something else over there, it looked like he fell.
Yeah.
And then, but his wife was in the bathroom and
was on the floor
with pills strewn around. Yes. So that sounded like a suicide. But then you have a dog.
First. Yeah, it sounded
my
like
point always comes back to, but what about the dog?
Yeah. Did the dog eat the pills? I started thinking about that too. Could it have been okay, she saw him dead and then she committed suicide, but
Yeah,
that doesn't
right.
make sense because she's 64, he's 95. Of course, she expected that he was going to die.
Uh-huh.
So and plus he's
Right.
got a pretty good life to look forward to. Why commit suicide? I don't. It doesn't. That doesn't make sense.
Right, right,
And
right.
then also them falling where they were and how they. You'd think, okay, if they were having carbon monoxide, you'd think they'd get sleepy first and maybe sit down or even lie down first, but not on the floor.
Right.
So were they poisoned somehow, like cyanide? Also, the door was ajar when the authorities got there.
Mm, mm.
So no sign of foul play, no bodily injuries. This is a mystery.
It
It's
really
very
is.
interesting.
Now,
Plus, they'd been there for several days too.
they said like 2 weeks is the latest. There's even signs of mummification, which happens
Right,
in the particular
very dry
climate
places.
over
Right.
time. Beautiful place, and as I recall, it was like a $3.5 million place. But in Santa Fe, New Mexico, $3.5 million goes a lot further than it does in California. So they got a
True.
very nice place where reportedly they were not seen in public that much. But here's a bottom line. Gene Hackman was 95, so there's no surprise that he passed away at all. But his wife, considerably like almost 30 years younger, that's where the whole mystery comes in. And then you throw the dog in as well. And there just really is no more. I think it's going to take another week or so before we start piecing some things together. So you say, you throw out, well, was there foul play? Why would there be foul play at that point in someone's life? I just don't know. I guess all I can say about it is Gene loved acting. He absolutely loved his career. He was a beloved actor.
He was a great actor.
He
I mean, every
was.
movie he was in was great. I
Mhm.
can't think of a bad one.
He had an it factor where you just wanted to see him. Like, oh my God, they talk about his role in Unforgiven. And
Oh, he was great in
what a
that. What was
good.
it, Little Joe or something like that?
Yeah, but yeah, he was a cantankerous, played the
Uh,
bad guy in
he
that.
could play so many different characters. I'm thinking about him in
The
Blazing.
Superman
Was it
thing.
no? Young Frankenstein, and
God,
he
that
played a
long
very
ago.
small role in it, but it was
Oh,
hilarious. I mean, he had the capability of being a bad guy. He could be a good guy. He
uh-huh.
could be a funny guy.
He was the
He was all
bumbling
around.
villain in the Superman movies.
Oh,
He was
that's
Lex
right.
Luthor.
Oh, that was so good. I
Yeah.
mean, he could play every role.
You
He
know
was
what
the
was
ultimate
interesting?
actor.
Is he was one of those guys, kind of like Steve Martin. Steve Martin because of his silver hair his whole life. But he just always seemed rather old.
Yeah, he did,
But
right?
then to me, it was like, and this isn't, I don't mean recent. I mean, like when I heard he retired a few years ago, and he's been retired for a long time, but it was like all of a sudden I saw a picture of him and he was like 90. And I'm like, what? Gene Hackman's 90 and he looks like that? Like, because he always looked the same his whole life.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, because of that, when I heard that he was 95, I was surprised. Like, wait, he's 95?
Yeah,
He,
yeah.
he seemed ageless, actually.
Yeah, I guess that's my point.
Yeah,
Morgan Freeman, a lot like
that's
that.
another guy, right?
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
right.
So I just want to celebrate him a little bit because he
Yeah,
seemed like a regular dude. He was a Marine.
I didn't
Um,
know that. Wow.
yeah, I read a little bit about him yesterday, and I guess that's all we really got right now is just
I
that
hate
he
that he went out like that. That's
at
too bad.
95, though.
Unceremoniously, though.
Yeah,
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 you would. I'd
but
rather
not in
that he was in his
Hollywood.
bed.
He
Yeah.
wanted the hell out of Hollywood, and
Well, thank
I
God he got
respect
out.
that. Yeah,
Me
yeah,
too.
yeah. So he was estranged from at least one of his kids, though.
Oh, that's too
There's
bad.
that's always one of those like,
It's
it's
sad.
a tough
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Well, with that, Merle, that's really all I got for today. And
Well, good job, Barry.
thanks.
Post surgery.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for picking up the slack because I've been, it's a little bit tough one. So
You did good, man.
I think it came across. I've been a little irritated by the fact that it seems like the whole movement has kind of been coming to a screeching halt. with the supposed release of the Epstein files. We're going to see JFK, all of this. I mean, I'm rehashing now, but I just think that if we want to save this country, we need to make sure that we bring right out into the spotlight who's responsible for all of these transgressions that have led this country to where it's been, so it never happens again. This should be a historic moment in American history, and I feel like, no, I think the deep state is putting the kibosh on that. I'm very bothered by this.
Well, you know, they're going to do everything they can to put the kibosh on it. We were expecting that to happen. So, you know, this is going to be a battle, and this is part of the battle. And I feel like you do, though, because I want it to be done right now. But knowing how deeply entrenched these people are and how much time they've had to be able to be deeply entrenched, maybe I need to adjust my expectations on this, but I still feel the way that you feel as well.
Okay. For next week, I will be out of town, but I mean, let's talk. Maybe we'll pull together a good podcast from Sarasota. We'll see.
Sounds cool. All right.
I hope so.
Very nice. How do they find us?
Oh, over 50 startingover.com. Sign up there. Get this to your email box as it happens. And sign up at YouTube, and please share and leave us a comment or two. Apple Podcasts, listen to us there, both video and audio at Spotify. And Android, go with Google Play. And please leave us reviews there. And what do we got coming up after this?
Oh, we got Mark and the AI. Thank God we can learn about that.
Yes.
He's got some good stuff, so stay tuned for that.
Hello there, over 50 starting over friends. Mark Tennant back with you with your AI tip of the week. This week, AI is a behavioral shift, not a technical shift. Well, over the last 16, 17 weeks now, we've been learning together using AI. And hopefully one thing has become clear to you, that the learning curve with AI is not that steep at all. Many of us over 50s are coming up to speed on it, which is just fantastic, and I'm glad so many people are starting to use it and getting the most out of the AI. But once I found folks are using it, what do? They just close it up. And why is that? Well, I think it's because 95% of us are using ChatGPT like a search engine, like Google. But please, stop it, please. So to prove a point, let's open both, and let's show you what they look like, and take a look at that. ChatGPT on top, Google on the bottom. What do you see between the two? Well, they look a lot alike. I know when I first saw ChatGPT, and I imagine the same thing with you as you're watching this, it just looks the same. But they couldn't be more different. It's really, really night and day, but they're treated just the same. Because people are using ChatGPT like a search engine, they're just getting used to it because they're used to typically using search like that. They use it and they just close it up, but they're not the same. With ChatGPT, you're missing out on so much if you're using it as a search engine. Have that conversation. We always say that. With Google, in many cases, it's all irrelevant information and unwanted information. So let me give you an example of, and this is a personal thing. So how I fixed my dryer, and I did it myself using ChatGPT. So I took a picture of the dryer, I uploaded it to ChatGPT, and it knew exactly what the model was. It asked me a couple of questions. I told it the drum wasn't spinning properly. It says, I know it's exactly wrong. It gave me the part number to order from Amazon, and then it told me, when you get the part, let's just have this conversation again and start the conversation back up. So I did. First of all, the parts were about less than $15. And when I got the parts, fired up ChatGPT, screw by screw, step by step, it told me how to fix my dryer. I did. I put it back together all in less than 1 hour. Less than an hour. That's how powerful these tools are. AI can learn and adapt to work with you. Just have that conversation. Here's a pro tip. Always have ChatGPT open when you start your computer. Remind yourself, I don't care how you do it, stick a post-it notes all over your monitor, but just have that conversation with the AI if you're stuck on something. It can give you something that's truly unique, and I think you know that by now, and it's made just for you. Search doesn't do that. Just have that conversation. Unlearning habits, this is why we're saying it's a behavioral change. It is tough, especially for us over 50s. We're kind of set in our ways, but just have that conversation every single day. So to wrap up, break that search mindset. You'll be better off for it. Just have that conversation. I have a new podcast out. It's called AI Over 50, and it's kind of an extension of the AI tip of the week, but we go a little bit deeper. Episodes are between 10 and 15 minutes. Lots of value. We go over some exercises. I give you some tips. Our show notes are complete that you can download after you listen to the podcast, and you can apply it and just keep building on your learning of AI week after week. So until next time, have that conversation with AI. Keep learning and keep using AI.